Hey everyone, we're going to be doing the new tier list that is up on the Discord. I actually recorded this video, but it ended up being like 30 minutes long or something, and I just didn't want it being that long. Also, I felt like I didn't really cover the units properly, so we're going to be redoing it again. And basically, this is going to be the last tier list you guys see before we get anniversary. We do still have Rim and Ram coming out. This tier list was made before Rim and Ram. I don't know, I recorded the video last night before we knew that Ram was also coming with Ram. At least we think Rim and Ram are coming on the same banner. We could be wrong, but it looks like it, so. Yeah, so we're going to be going over the units, and next time you see this tier list, it's going to have some big changes, because hopefully Anniversary brings a big unit. And yeah, so they've reworked this tier list, and now has different categories for PvE, and they go best to worst. So what I did was I covered like entire categories, and I just found it to be it was a lot. So I'm gonna try and keep it to a minimum. I'd probably go with only like the first row in every category. Some categories only have one row, so it'll make it a lot easier. But then I'll give like little thoughts on the units behind. So for Ram, or for DPS, we have Kid Ram. Pretty exceptional unit. She does AoE damage. She has some of the best attack stats in the game. She's held up very well. She's in a lot of PvE teams, and we can only see her getting higher because of the support that this Betty gives to red units, and just the synergy she has with the new red units that look to be insane. So we'll be seeing a lot more of her in PvE, especially. And then we have Counter Krush. Interesting pick. Counter Krush is not used very much, I've seen, but she is great. She does have an excellent counter. She has a very good kit. She gets an attack buff every time she gets hit, as well as the counter. She gets taunt, which is really nice to combo with her counter. She gives damage over time. She's a great unit overall. She doesn't see too much play, but when she does, I can definitely see her carrying an entire team. She's well built. Then we have Petal Juice. He has got his excellent revive. He gives himself a lot of buffs. He can remove a lot of buffs, especially when he does single target hits. He can apply a lot of damage over time if you combo him with this memory over here. This memory being one of the best in the game for physical units, I believe, because of its potential, just the way that the game calculates hits. Let's see if I can find this one. So attack in general, and then when attacking, there's a 100% chance that the enemy will be inflicted with damage over time for 2 turns. I thought this was physical restricted, but it looks like it's just anyone, even magical units. So no matter how many times you attack, you're at least guaranteed, you know, like damage over time at least once. So it's really solid, especially if you have Petal Juice. Petal Juice has like 10 hits or something crazy, so you can apply the hell out of this and just inflict so many, and it'll just chip away at the enemy's health like big time. So if they're not immune, I can see this guy being useful. Also, then when he revives, he has a very strong mechanic where I think he boosts his agility, or he just reduces the hell out of the enemy's agility, something like that. I don't have him, so I don't know his kit too well. Then we have Swimsuit Amelia. She combos very well with the new Betty, and Betty just combos with every red unit in the game overall. She has attacks based off her defense, so she's basically immune to attack down, which is very strong. She is a great kit overall. She's AoE. She's very, very tanky unit, as well as it allowing her to DPS is just really good. She's a very great unit. I would prefer Betty over her, because Betty's just a support overall for the entirety of red, while Emilia just benefits greatly from it. So then we have Sword Saint. She's one of the best single attackers in the game. She used to be the best DPS in the game until Ram came out, or Ram. I always mix up their names on camera. I swear, I know their names off camera. It's just when I'm on camera, my mind goes 120% speed. So yeah, she has buffs at the beginning of the phase, and that's not beginning of battle, beginning of phase, meaning every time she enters a new room, she gets her buffs back. So that is very strong. She has invincibility, speed, crit rate, attack, defense. I believe those are her buffs. She's basically always a critting machine. If we get better crit memories, I can definitely see her being a lot higher. Currently we have like attack memories that give like 31%, and then crit memories that give like 20 something percent, like 23% or so. So I do think attack right now is better to scale, but as we get better crit memories, if we ever do, crit memories does actually, or crit does actually scale better than attack. I used to think attack was better, but I never realized the calculations that I was making, because we have like 30% attack memories and 23% crit memories, so I didn't even realize the huge 7% difference there. So yeah, so once we get better crit memories, I can definitely say we're being higher. Then we have Subaru. He can, you know, live at 1 HP, and then the lower his HP is, the higher his attack. So he's definitely going to be killing at least one person on the field at all times. I do believe he has action gauge reduction, which is very strong. Let me see. He's not here. They haven't updated that in a while, I believe. Okay, Allies Arena Attack. He's got a solid leader skill, solid stats all across the board. He's decently fast, decreases self cooldown, then 70 reduced, but yeah. So additionally, so if you have idle memory, your 50% turns into like what, like a 15 or something. It's insane. He reduces action gauge, increases by 75%, which is way better than Val Rim's 25%. And then he does survive the killing blow. Increases action gauge by 50%. Jesus Christ, when he's attacked, so that's insane. Then he gives himself a chance to reduce attack, defense, agility, all in one hit. Then when he's 50% or lower, he can damage through invincibility. Not the most insane thing, but it is pretty nice to have, not gonna lie. So yeah, he's a great unit overall. He's definitely more PvP than PvE, but he's still pretty solid. Then we have Emilia, one of the best units from a long time ago. She's been one of the best units in the game since day one. So her being here as high as she is, it just says a lot about her kit. She's an AoE, damage over time inflictor. She can inflict freeze, although a lot of PvE bosses are immune to freeze. But when you do find that freeze ability, you definitely use it to your advantage. She's Emilia camp, so that's just a bonus. Basically everyone with Emilia camp is just bonus here because they used a lot more content. Then we have Christmas Rem. Christmas Rem is being one of the better units in the game as well. That's withstood the test of time. She's great in any demon team. She's amazing in any Emilia camp team. I regret not pulling for her when the Christmas units came back, because she's used in almost every PvE team for anything Emilia camp or demon related. She just hits very hard. She's AoE. I believe she has a solid leader skill as well. Let's see, Christmas Ram. Yeah, she gives everyone in Emilia camp attack by 35%. Although you do have the same exact thing for Subaru. I believe Subaru has the same exact leader skill, and he's already Emilia camp, and he gives it to everyone else. But whenever you can't use it, he gives 30%. So a little 35 is a little extra. So pretty solid. Then she has like one of the higher attack stats in the game, 16k. 1600. 1600 being as a Christmas unit that came back then, it still holds up really well. That's just really insane. Yeah, she's overall great. She's withstood her time, so that's really solid for her. Then we have Betty, Krush, and Wilhelm. Just speeding it up a little bit. Krush is pretty solid, although I do think she's worse than both of these Elsas in my opinion. They just work better with their kits overall. I think they should both be higher, probably like here on this side. I'd say probably after Will is Bride Elsa, and then Elsa could be down here. But then we have Will. He has AoE niche unit. He doesn't really get too much play, but whenever you need a solid blue team leader, I believe he's a blue team leader. I'm just gonna check. He's very good in like blue teams. Yeah, allies attack 30% whenever you want at least like a blue leader to have an overall skill for everyone. Like instead of just putting a Subaru against like a red boss, you can just put this guy. He does AoE, defense down. That's pretty solid. Chance to increase all allies by 30%, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, he's a really solid unit to have. He doesn't see too much play though. Then we have Betty. Betty is pretty solid overall. Again, she's the solid DPSer. She's an Emilia camp unit. She's used in a variety of teams, and she's really great overall in a lot of niche dungeons, especially Echidna dungeon when it's first go around. She was definitely needed, and yeah, she's a pretty solid unit. Anything else? I guess the Ryans, I would say they're probably better. Well, it depends on what your objective is here, because like Hooded Ram is one of the best stun lockers of the game. I use her for a lot of content. I think Julius is probably worse than the Ryans. Ryans are really strong. They're great AoEers, or one of them is. Two of them are single attack, but they have some of the better leader skills in the game because they also have attack leader skills. They ignore defense, which is really nice, especially for defense up enemies. Yeah, so it's just interesting to see them so low. Garth, I feel like isn't actually like a DPS, but he's categorized as one. But it is what it is. He's not the best unit. I've seen it. I've seen his placement from the previous time I recorded, and yeah, he's pretty on the ball right there. Then we had Tank being probably Felix. Yeah, I would agree. Felix is being one of the better tanks because he can take hits and basically dish them back out to the enemy. Unfortunately, he doesn't give himself cover. I feel like that's just what he would need. Instead, now he needs another unit to help him, which is another niche unit that not a lot of people have, so it's kind of frustrating. Then we have Labyrinth Ryan being one of the better units in the game. He's very versatile. He's going to be everywhere all over this. There's a disclaimer here. Labyrinth Ryan is in all the categories because you have 3 memories, being DPS, tank, and support. I guess he's hybrid support that they put him here. But yeah, he's a solid tank. I don't know his tank kit too well, but I know his support kit is really solid, and that is what I use. Then you have Julius, one of the best cover units in the game, although or one of the best units in the game, in my opinion, overall. But that would be for PvP. For PvE, he's kind of a little thrown to the wayside because you don't need to cover too much, unless you're trying to cheese like with Felix, because the reason you need cover on Felix is because he can take hits and then dish them back out to you. With Julius, he's just there to protect your team basically, and then give your team a turn or attack buff whenever he gets attacked. So kind of different uses. They kind of work differently in both categories, so it's hard to put them higher in PvE. Then we have Fred. She's actually a pretty solid tank. She's basically like Val Rim or Mimi, where whenever she gets hit, she heals. She has taunt, which is a really solid thing for a tank to have. Val Rim is a little worse, I would say, because she has the charm, which is nice to stun, but sometimes they're immune to stun. But taunt, most of the time they're not immune to, and you can kind of guide your enemy towards the direction you want to when you have a tank unit that can taunt. So that's a little more useful than Val Rim. Although Val Rim's reducive action gauge buffs is really nice. I don't know if that applies in PvE, but it is pretty solid. Then we have Subaru as a sort of tank. He's not the tankiest, but he can actually DPS pretty well, as I've seen. And yeah, he's just an overall great unit. He's free to play. He has a great leader skill. If you don't have him, I would suggest probably building him up and farming him. Also, his 1-star version is actually really solid as well, because his 1-star version has like a mini version of his skill where he gives like 10% attack to all allies or something. So he's pretty solid too. Then we have Al and Wilhelm, both underrated units, or I'd say Al is a little underrated, but he still needs a little buff to his kit. Like who got buffed? If someone got buffed a long time ago when I first started doing YouTube, and I completely forgot. But yeah, I could see him definitely being a little higher with a little tweak of his kit. Free to play Will, I don't actually ever use him, and I have no idea what he does. I'm still trying to farm him up. He's like silver for me. So maybe one day I'll start using them. Then we have support. So Leah, of course, being one of the best in the game, she could revive. That's a thing. No other unit can revive. Oh no, Felix can. I think this Felix can. But she revives very, very good. She gives a lot of buffs, no matter what she's doing. So you definitely want to keep her stunned at all times. She's very dangerous. She's definitely going to allow your team to sustain in any content. Whether it be PvP or PvE, but yeah, she shines very much in PvE. Betty being one of the best support for red units. Mono red events are going to be very easy going forward if you have this Betty. She gives collapse, which is insane, plus it stacks. She has a great passive where she just applies it on, entering the battle. I don't know too much about her because she just came out. Let me refresh real quick, but she is great. She's absolutely fantastic, and I wish I had her. So she gives chance to increase defense for all allies 1 turn on basic, so that's really solid basic. Red allies permanently have, yeah, so she permanently gives 70% max HP and 50% max defense as at entering the battle. So like that's just a permanent increase. If you just have her on the team, your team is automatically stronger. At the beginning of the battle, 100% chance to remove 2 buffs from all enemies. Inflict collapse. Additionally, when an enemy uses a skill that decreases cooldown, which is pretty much every PvP team in the game, and including some PvE bosses, 100% chance to increase all enemies' skill cooldowns by 2 turns and increase all allies' action gauge by 50%. So basically a walking idle memory. Yeah, she's insane. She's great. You definitely want her on a PvE team when it comes to red content. Then we have TIERLIST. She's great for some cheese teams. She can give people cover, so that combos really well with Felix. If you have units that can take damage or need to take damage in order to really get going, she's your girl. She can combo really well with Subaru. I can imagine it on some niche teams. I don't know what teams for what kind of content you need that for, but I can see it working. Felix being a classic, one of the best classic healers in the game. He's a little dated at this point, but he's still way better than most units at healing. Plus he res, I think it's the 1-star Felix that reses. Excuse me on that. I believe it's the 1-star Felix that reses. Someone very niche. I know it's a Felix though. Then we have the old TIERLIST. She gives invincibility to everyone, but that's kind of dated. You know, Roz that does that passively. She's great, but she's not the best. I feel like after Felix should be Rem because of the action gauge and the uses that you can combo with the idle memory. Just her potential way exceeds most of these characters. I would say probably Rem after Felix and then Ram after Rem, but it is what it is. These units being overall great, but not the best. Priscilla being probably one of the better because she's the only Priscilla that's really good. We have the free-to-play Priscilla down here, but she's not the best. Her being like one of the few Priscilla camp units, she's way more valuable than a lot of these units. Ram being a solid buffer. I believe she lowers, let me see, I don't want to say anything before actually checking it out. So we have Ram, Moonlight Dance. She gives defense for 2 turns to all allies, 100% chance to attack and crit rate. That's really solid. She decreases action gauge on 30% on her basic, so that's a really strong basic. She's pretty solid to have. She's nothing too game breaking, but if you need another red unit on your team, she is your girl. Felt being a great free-to-play support, mainly for PvP though. She gives defense to everyone, and then she does some other stuff, but for PvE it's nothing too crazy. Then we have the debuffer category, obviously. Echidna being the best debuffer in the game because she has 4 skills. She has she has a field skill which wipes all buffs from enemies and allies alike. She has a great leader skill, very unique. It's the first agility leader skill in the game. She has 4 skills. She's a festival unit, and yeah, she's just super cool overall. Mimi being the only distraction AoE unit in the game, being one of the only distraction units in the game other than this Tibby right here, but she's the only summonable one. But now that we have Summer Ram coming out, Summer Ram looks to be a single target. So I was gonna say, what I said in my previous time I recorded this was that Mimi's okay, but the only reason she's up this high is because of her debuff, which is still true. So if Ram were to have been AoE, she would have been way lower in my opinion, but Ram looks to be a single target, so it is unfortunate. But Mimi's kit is like pretty solid. Like every time she gets hit, she increases her action gauge a little bit. She applies defense down along with, I believe, attack down with the distraction, so that's always nice. Defense down is always something really nice to just have because it lowers the defense so much. But I feel like they could have just done a lot more with their kit, especially her being a Golden Week unit. But her introducing the distraction debuff is pretty solid overall, and it's definitely why she's just so high. Other than that, she's like, her kit is kind of okay. Then we have Val Rim being one of the most long-lasting units. She aged very well. Let's just say they keep putting out characters that can complement her really good, so it's very good to see, as I have her idle memory gold and I have her gold as well, so it's very nice. But I just don't have the team to actually use it, so it is what it is. She can AoE charm, she can AoE DOT. She can reduce cooldowns on her S1. She reduces defense on her basic. And yeah, she's overall a great unit. She has a great leader skill too, of a 50% chance to debuff for Emilia camp units. So it is restricted a little bit, but the 50%, it might be 40%, but the 50% overall is just like a really solid leader skill to have. Yeah, so 50% is really solid. And plus she's one of the fastest units in the game. She held the title for a very long time. A fastest unit of the game. She still can debatably be it. Then we have Christmas Amelia. She can reduce action gauge. You know, she can stun lock the enemy. Whenever you increase her action gauge, she reduces it, and she gets boosted by it. I'm not too sure if she reduces it. It's been a while since I've seen Emilia. I'm gonna be honest. Action gauge, yeah, so she doesn't reduce it, but she increases her action gauge by 80% every time someone increases their action gauge overall. Like, it doesn't have to be a set percentage. So she's always going to be going first before you if you increase your action gauge. So beware of that. She can counter that pretty strongly, and I have a feeling that's why she's stayed around so long. Plus her kit's just really solid. Then we have Hoodie Amelia. She was game breaking at the time. We thought she was going to break the game, but she was like she was mid. It was unfortunate, but every time she gets a turn, she can freeze the entire team. Freeze is kind of like iffy again because a lot of bosses are immune to it, so it is what it is. Then we have Christmas Ram. She's really great at clearing debuff or clearing buffs on the enemy, but that's about all I ever used her for. I'm not too sure what she does, to be honest, but she is pretty solid to have. All of the Christmas units are definitely really solid. She has a chance to stun and remove all buffs. Okay, so she can stun as well, decrease defense for 3 turns, and decrease action gauge by 30%. So this is an AoE. Yeah, this is a really solid AoE. Then she can decrease agility for 2 turns. So she's a great staller as well as removing the buffs. So that's really solid. Then we have Hetero. He can just apply defense down. He's AoE. He's an Anastasia camp unit, so he's really valuable to have. And then another Priscilla camp unit, valuable to have regardless of the kit. Then we have hybrid support. Anastasia being one of the best in the game, obviously. She can give buffs to your team. She gives your team increased or decreased cooldowns. Then she increases the cooldowns of everyone on the enemy team, and she could remove all buffs. So she's pretty solid. She has a crit rate lead, which is very niche, but I can definitely see crit rate leads getting a little more play if teams can be formed around him. Then we have Roz, of course, infamous Gentleman Roz. He has a great passive that applies every 3 turns. You get resistance, you get invincibility, and then you get, I think, healing or defense, something like that. But yeah, he's just very strong overall. You don't want to let his passive start up. Then we have support Ryan. I believe this is the cover Ryan. He heals every time he gets hit. He gets cover every 3 turns. Not to mention he starts the battle with it for 1 turn. Pretty solid unit overall to just give your team some defense. Then we have Lolly Ram. Ram gives a shield. She's the first ever shield unit. It's not the strongest shield, I would say. I think it's like 3k damage. So it's not the best. And then she can, I have no idea what she does actually. Let's see if we can find her. Should be a little bit up here. Yeah, so she can increase all allies' attack for 1 turn. Interesting. She gives a shield for 5k HP. Okay, so it's a little better than I thought. For 2 turn, additionally reduces all allies' cooldowns by 2 turns. 100% chance to cover all allies' HP by 30%. Pretty solid healer. 100% chance to increase all allies' defense and crit rate. Give recovery for 2 turns and a resistance for 1 turn. So she gives some solid buffs. She's definitely a sustain queen, but she does not compare to Bride Emilia. Then we have Tibby. I think this is Tibby. Yeah, Tibby can give himself agility on his S2. He gives defense to everyone on his team, and I think that's about it. He's nothing too crazy. Anastasia can remove buffs from all allies or from all enemies, but I rarely see it. Like I always use it, but I rarely see it all the time. Then we have Felix. He's an okay stun locker. He's a little niche, but whenever you can use him, you probably should. Halloween Betty's kind of whatever. These two are three kind of whatever. Tibby is also one of the only units in the game that can give distraction besides Mimi. He is a free-to-play one, so if you get him, That's pretty solid. They bring his dungeon back a lot. Then we have Valentine's Day Petra. She's a solid attack buffer, but that's about it. Then we have C for Krush. So real quick, let me just test the audio. My Streamlabs bugging out. I hope it doesn't mess up the recording. So then we have the PvP tier list. So yeah, notable counters. These are the teams that they can counter. So if you want like team ideas and who you're going to be wanting to face up against, these are your go-to ideas. So looking at meta, we have the 2 new swimsuit units, Echidna, Old Subaru, Bride Leah, Krush. Interesting that Krush is there because I feel like Krush should be viable because I don't see her a lot in the meta. But yeah, Anastasia, of course, Mimi, of course, Val Rim, of course. Interesting that Val Rim has outlived Roz, which is pretty cool to see. Viable, definitely. I feel like this Ram could potentially be meta because I feel like a lot of whales, as soon as they get them up or get her up, she's definitely going to be on the team to full wipe. Especially this Ryan as well. He's definitely viable still. But it is what it is. I'd say potentially this Bride Leah could be viable. I'd say she's probably at the end, but she's definitely viable. Val Rim, maybe. I feel like a lot of people just do what she does better. Felix, definitely no. Actually, yes. Definitely, I see a lot of Felix teams that give me a lot of trouble still. I don't know about this Emilia. I've seen some Emilia teams, but they don't ever scare me. Like I don't know. They just don't put in fear the way that this Felix does. So interesting to see that there. I feel like this Ryan potentially could be meta now because I think he can be golded. I'm a little behind on Labyrinth, but I think he can be golded, and I think he's going to see a lot more play, 100%. This Julius kind of falling off because Echidna exists, so she can just clear all buffs, but he is still really solid unit. Don't let Echidna take away from this Julie. Then we have Roz, definitely still pretty solid unit. Christmas Amelia just out there withstanding time itself. She's an incredibly strong unit, aged incredibly well. Sword Saint's really solid for one-shots, but she can barely one-shot anymore. Plus you have units that can survive one-shots that have type advantage over her. Garf is unfortunately down here. I feel like he'd be usable at the very least. Overall, this is a pretty solid PvP tier list. So if you want some teams here, definitely any of the 3 here, or any of the, I forget the teams are 4. Any of the 4 here would make a solid team. Of course, you want a little synergy, so you can try making some synergy. But if you literally just want to grab any of the 4, it'd probably work too, honestly. I think we have some counters. You can always check out who counters who, like Betty. She can counter Ram, but then Ram down here, she can counter Betty. So it's like a flip-flop situation. So if you want more detail, just come join the Discord. Everything here is in the linked in the description, so you should join. I'm not affiliated with this Discord. I'm just very involved in their community. But yeah, so like I just promote it because they put a lot of hard work, as you can see, so they deserve some like promotion or like some attention at the very least. And yeah, so that's gonna do it for the tier list. It still ended up being 30 minutes. I tried to cut it down. Fuck. It is what it is. My software cut out like halfway, like it just stopped showing or loading like audio levels, and it was kind of like frozen. So hopefully it doesn't affect the recording. But yeah, so that's gonna do it for the tier list, and I'll see you guys next time. Sorry this is so damn long. Yeah, I'll see you guys later.